Before we start the episode, if the content of the show is something that has been resonating with you, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who you feel may need to hear it. This helps the show grow and helps us keep bringing this content out into the world. My guest today is Brownell Landrum. Now, before we get started, I want to do something different today. Usually when people meet each other, it's the same questions like, well, where are you from? What do you do for work? What's your name? Where I'm from, it's maybe even who are your parents? And they try to get an idea of who you are based on that. But that doesn't really tell you anything about a person. I think a lot of people realize that. And I understand why we do it. We're busy. We don't have time. But we have time here today, and I'm saying this to the audience too because I haven't gotten a chance to actually meet Brownell. And I guess I should ask, am I pronouncing your first name correctly?
Perfect. Perfect.
Yes. So I know enough about her to know that I wanted her to be a guest on the show. But as we do introductions today, I want to get to know each other on a level that I wish we all had time to get to know each other on, us as souls, as energetic beings. When I ask, I would say, Brownell, it's nice to meet you. Tell me something about yourself. I don't want to know things like your name and what you do for work and where you're from and all that, at least not initially. I would like to meet someone up front on the soul level. So as an example, I would say, this is who I am. I am a person who was lucky enough to be born into a family where I was told things like, I am a spirit and I chose to be here. I even got to choose my parents. I'm also someone who developed a sense of insecurity at an early age. I'm not sure where that comes from. It might be from stresses in my family at a young age. It might have been something that I came into the world with. So I spent a lot of years standing on the outside, feeling that I didn't deserve to be here in the sense that I would never speak up. I was very shy as a kid, so I wouldn't act the way that I felt was in alignment with my true self. I wouldn't speak my mind. And this would be later in life, of course, after you kind of get programmed when you're 7, 8 years old and you start to learn. These people told me I'm poor, or I'm goofy looking, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I took on that identity or definition that I let others put on me. So I spent a lot of years feeling like an outsider. But because I had that seed planted that I was an energetic being, a soul that chose to be here, that never left me at all. And I'm so grateful to my parents for that because it became my guiding light through life. And I eventually found my way into learning how to live authentically. So at some point in the 20s, things got really uncomfortable for me. I'm out to say I went through a dark night of the soul. I even had a year of spontaneous out-of-body experiences, which led me down quite a deep rabbit hole to, don't know if I would say finding myself, but searching for things that I hold as deep truths now as well, like the idea that we never die and we're energetic beings, and that was a real confirmation for me. Um, to the point where now I don't think that I have it figured out, but I don't consider myself a seeker anymore. Not because I say I have it all figured out, but I have found a path. I don't think that I found the path. I don't think there is the path, but I found a path that works enough for me that I'm no longer seeking. I'm now trying to put things into practice. And one of those things is to express my truth, express myself as authentically as possible. And this is how I came to doing something like this podcast and meeting people like you with the projects that you're doing and sharing not just my view of what it is we're doing here on this planet as humans, but sharing views like yours, Brownell. So when I say hello, it's nice to meet you, who are you? That's the type of thing I would like to hear about you, first of all.
That's really incredible, and I love that. In fact, I don't have it in front of me, but I actually looked up the list of. There's a study because I'm looking into the science stuff, and there's a study about certain questions you can ask, and that builds intimacy.
Hmm.
And I should have that in front of me because that would be really interesting to go through. And that gives you a little bit of an idea for me. One of the most profound experiences of my life happened, gosh, 30 years ago. And I met someone and he said, and I thought I had the answer to something, like some, revelation of life. And he said, Brownell, he said, you're an explorer and you're always going to be an explorer. And so like some of the bios that I do, I might say I'm an explorer of metaphysical mysteries. And I think I think there's two parts of that to me is that I'm an explorer and then I also like opening people's minds.
Yeah.
and getting them to think about things that maybe they haven't thought about in a specific way. So the explore thing is interesting because unlike you who said, okay, I think I'm done with my seeking. I think I have my path. I always think I do, and then I always get another path and
Oh
another
yeah.
method and another like it's like this, the universe is expanding, right? I mean,
Yeah, the
literally.
path opens up to you and you don't know if there's a fork. So absolutely.
That's right. And that's right. So it's been, I mean, that if there's anything that kind of defines my life is that I'm constantly kind of exploring and curious and interested in things. I had, my early life probably the kind of the typical American of, okay, I know what I want to do. I graduated, went to college, got a degree, worked really, got, ambitious, and then some things happened that kind of threw a huge wrench into that trajectory, which, as my first book is about 5 reasons why bad things happen. And the reason that happened was to get me in a different direction and get me to go deeper. It led to a lot more problems in my life.
Yeah.
It was not like, oh, this is easier. The other way was easier, right? The
Yes.
superficial life was so much easier in so many ways, and yet the deeper path is like once you're in that deeper path, there's kind of no turning back. So it's been really interesting. I have failed quite often and spectacularly to the degree of I've actually been a keynote speaker at two different failure conferences.
Really.
So I was like, okay, I'm a success at failure. I don't know. I mean, that was years ago, but there have definitely been a lot of learning experiences in terms of, okay, this isn't the right path, or this is what I learned. I not too long ago, within the last year or two, I kind of came up with this phrase of reverse optimism, which is when you can look back at the things that happened and go, that's why that happened. That wasn't fun, but boy, if it hadn't happened, this led to this, led to this. And I think that that's been something that's been really profound for me is to kind of look at life that way. And then when you do, then you're looking at things happening now going, okay, is this going to potentially, could this serve me
Yes.
going forward? And so I think that's kind of a big thing. I also wrote a semi-autobiographical novel that I published about 6 months ago, which actually led to the wishing thing, which we can or cannot get into. It's up to you. I was writing it and I thought, well, I'm going to write this from the point of view of what I call the upstairs, right? Who
Hmm.
are these people up here and how are they looking down at these people? And I thought, okay, I call her Nell, right? Pretty real big stretch in terms of, veiling my name. And I'm writing it and I realized all of a sudden they're telling me who they are, like they're real.
Could I,
And that was very
are,
powerful.
are you talking about things outside of you when you say they?
They like I'm yeah, like in the upstairs, I call them they're two guides and two what I call traffic angels.
Yes. All
And the
right.
traffic angels, and part of the story is, you know, how do you take an American woman living in Aspen, Colorado, and get her to meet a British man living in Tunisia or in Tunisia? And so it's like they had to do a lot of logistics. There was a lot of shuffling around of like, what do you have to do? I had to get basically my landlord raised the rent so much that I had to move, but then I was going to go to Italy, and then Italy didn't work out, and then that led to Tunisia because I had to have a break, and then and all these things happened. And the bigger thing is that it guided me to get to know them and to be in a different place of instead of try to say this is how I'm guiding my life. How do I listen for how I should be guided? And that's been an interesting experience going to there. So not every day do I feel like they're talking to me,
Yeah.
but it was really interesting. I'd say that's kind of like that's another exploration of what about this way to look at life.
Yeah.
And then I had something happen last week that's kind of more businessy oriented, but it was like, well, how do I really want to spend my life and what kind of work do I want to do and how do I want to do that and what's my energy guiding toward that? And it got very clear that I like to do two things. I like to create and I like to support other people. And so now it's like I'm leading me to a direction of like I'm creating things and then I'm building things for other people to use and then I can support them in using it. So it's about them and their vision that I just built the framework for. So I don't know if that's what you're kind of
I
looking for, but
love
I would
that.
get a lot of stuff.
I'm just sitting here nodding, thinking, "Yep, yep, that's what I feel like I'm doing, at least with this podcast." And I didn't expect that at first. I knew what podcasts did for me. In fact, my favorite ones were the podcasts centered around the near-death experience and the things that those people had learned. And I'm like, I want that. I want my show to be about that. But it's evolved into anything in this sort of realm. More specifically, are what are the practical things people can do to get in touch with this, whether it be guides or your angels or source or God or their higher self, whatever that thing is, and however they want to define it, and how they can have a stronger connection with it and use that to guide the course of their lives. So I knew that I wasn't wrong when I said yes to you when it was we were going to have an interview. But thank you for that. That's perfect. We are quite aligned. So you are an explorer and you find yourself as a pretty prolific author. How many books have you written now? Don't even know.
Dozen screenplays. Well, not all of them are published, and I've written some that are like I've written the screenplay, but I'm still in the process of writing the book version of it.
Hmm.
So, and then I've written songs and like all
Yeah,
kinds of different
I'm a
stuff. So,
songwriter myself.
oh, yeah.
I've got two albums with the band and one from myself and my sister. So I did see some clips of you and you mentioned that. I was like, these are good little nods. I like
Yeah,
this.
thanks.
But so is the book, The Art and Science of Wishing, is that your latest book? That was the how you kind of introduced yourself to me through email, was that you were the author of this book. Is this the latest passion
Well,
project?
actually, the latest is this.
Cosmic Wishes.
So it's
Okay.
a children's book
Yes.
for on wishing that's tied to the art and science of wishing. This book.
Yes.
So, and then I'm also actually in the process of writing the art and science of wishing at work, and so that's kind of a spinoff, mostly for it's for putting it the practices to work, but it's also like in work environments, the importance of especially when going through change. And of course, wishes are inherently about change, right? You want to see some sort of change, and so that's kind of where I'm working now. You'll probably appreciate this. I literally just this afternoon was working on like how important one of the criteria is that you have to have a really good story, right? You have to communicate. If you're leading a change through your organization or any kind of change in the world, whether it's a political leader or an inspirational leader or even a podcast leader, it's like, what's your story, right? And if you have a really powerful story that you communicate and hopefully communicate over time, that increases your chances of success in that change so much more. And there's some really beautiful science in storytelling. So what I was doing today was looking at the science of storytelling. So I'm writing the chapter on how do you write your story to get people inspired by change. Right. And the opening is Joan of Arc had a vision, Gandhi had a mantra, and Martin Luther King had a dream. What if today it's a wish backed by science? Right? And
Yeah.
then I was looking through it and I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and look at the six or eight criteria of or sciences involved and then evaluate, did Martin Luther King hit all of those sciences when he made that speech? And it was really fun to look at, like, to
I
match
bet.
science to that talk, because that's what got us civil rights. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that talk, 200,000 people on the mall in Washington, that set a vision that everyone was like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
that's the world we want, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're working for this. So it's not fighting against something, it's looking for something.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I thought you might find that fun.
Yes. So it isn't just a personal dream, it's casting it out there to get it out into the collective too. And
That's
is that
right.
is that something that you talk about in the book, how to project it like that? Or I guess you were kind of saying that the story that you have is how
Well,
that
that's
gets.
part of it. Yeah. And yeah, I think that well, I mean, the research, like, did you know that every time you make a wish, you engage over a dozen sciences?
No. Well, before we even get into that, I want to ask you this, because here's the question I had when I saw it, because this word manifestation it's a buzzword anymore. So I'm like, okay, she's saying wishing, and she's saying the art and the science of wishing. So if wishing can be an art or even a science, you must be able to get good at it.
Yes.
But so what is a wish then? What is a wish?
Yeah. So okay, and I'll get back to well, do you want me to answer your other question or you want me to get to this one?
Either one,
The
either
other
one.
question was about the story, and
Yes.
I was just
Okay,
saying
I'm
that
sorry. Yeah.
no, that's okay because it ties into it ties
Okay.
all in is because as I said, there's a dozen sciences, right? And
Yes.
one of them is anthropology. That like even today you said the word wish, and I don't even know if you know you said it.
No, not consciously.
Right when you were first opening up, you said, I wish that this, you know. So we say this word. It's a beautiful word too, by the way. Let's just embrace the beauty of the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's got an energy to it. Like,
Right. You're
yeah, I
right.
wish. I mean, it's just got this beautiful, beautiful energy to it, isn't it?
Yes.
You're never going to
Wish.
think about the word.
No, I've never thought about, and I've done that. Certain words are beautiful. I never thought about the word wish and the way it flows out. And it does feel like you're projecting something
It's like
just
a
to say
phonetic,
it.
yeah, it's like releasing it to the universe. Thing.
Yeah.
So, and so anthropology is an important one, right? And that since, I mean, everyone, everywhere, all over the world wishes.
hmm
And we've wished since the dawn of humanity. That's, I mean, if there's anything that we have in common, it's wishing,
Yeah.
you know, and we used to be collective wishing. We used to wish together. We used to wish for the same thing together. We wish for it to rain, or we wish for our crops to thrive, or we wish for a safe, you know, successful hunt, you know, in the hunter gatherers. And so we've kind of lost that, I think. I mean, Martin Luther King's dream speech is the perfect example of a collective wish, right? He set a vision that we could all wish for. And so to go back to answer your question, so that's one of the sciences. And then to answer your question, that's what I had to do when I was writing. I was writing the novel, and I was writing this world where wishes are answered and gathered, and it's like this magical kind of world upstairs. And so you have to kind of answer questions like, what is a wish, and what is the difference between a wish, a prayer, and a goal?
Yeah. Or just a desire, it's just
Do you?
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about a goal, is something you can say, I'm going to do this, right? It's usually in your control. It's got a plan. You can say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to, you know, take this trip or whatever. And you can set that plan and you can achieve that goal generally. And then with a prayer, it's something out of your control,
Mhm.
right? It's when I can't do anything more, I'm going to have to pray for my child to heal, or my this to this, or whatever it is. And wishes are somewhere beautiful in between because there's a little bit of control within it, and then there is the fact that there is an element that's outside of our control, and that's what I call cosmic collaboration.
I love it.
And I think the thing that you'll resonate the most with here is that I talk about the difference between a wish and a cosmic wish. And the word cosmic is such a cool word. And that it is, if you look at Merriam-Webster, the first part is universe or universal. The second part of the definition is spiritual or metaphysical. And the third part is comprehensive. So the idea is how to turn a wish into a cosmic wish is you start applying the science. And that's the part you're talking about. Like, okay, what's the practical application here? Because, you know, you can
Yeah.
tell me to wish, oh, okay, next birthday, I'm going to have candles. Let me do that, you know, or next time I see a
Right.
you do that. But what is the real science behind it? And how can you use that science to make your wishes more powerful and more in your control? And also more, I call but one of the foundations of it, I call the three P's, that your wishes should be peaceful, positive, and purposeful. Right.
Mhm.
So that's one. And then there's science behind peaceful. That's so cool. Right. It's the polyvagal system and the body being able to get into a peaceful place to actually feel the peace as well as make the wish that is a peaceful wish and not a negative wish.
Yeah.
A positive means that you're coming with some positivity and you're also wishing for something positive, which means you're wishing for and not against.
Right.
And then purposeful means it's not just benefiting you, it's benefiting others. And there's all kinds of cool science with all of that. So I don't want to go like ramble because I want you to ask questions, but that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question about like, what is a wish?
Yeah. So I guess yes, that there is a mechanism behind it.
Yes.
And and you answered some of those steps, this getting into the state of peace and positivity. Do you discover in your explorations, because you're an explorer, that it's more effective when you're doing it from that state, or does it matter? You could do it in negativity, because it seems that there's a group in the world that's guiding the course of history that are negative, and they seem to have their wish becoming true. Or is it more powerful to do it from a positive place, and we just have forgotten that power?
There are two parts to answer to your question, and it's like the thing that I think about all the time.
Okay.
And one of it is, are you familiar with the David Hawkins research? Power versus
Slightly.
force?
Slightly. He talk about resonance, coherence, and
Yeah, and he has the scale of the energies.
yes, but I couldn't tell anyone about it. I had another guest who referred me to him and I asked him to be on the show. He never responded, but yeah, so educate me.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of like different levels of energy, and the lower levels of energy are in that force area, and the higher levels are in the power area. And so what's happening now is we are in this lower level fear, anger, despair, fear, despair, despair, anger, despair, anger, despair, anger, right?
Yes, yes.
And they're really good at pushing us down there
Mm-hmm.
and holding us down there, forcing us to react, and the only answer people seem to have is protesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a way of showing unity. But what we need to do is we need to rise up to the higher levels, right? We need to just go up and elevate where we're not bothered by that anymore.
Yeah.
We have such a beautiful, positive, purposeful, peaceful vision that of where we're going, that we have that energy, and we're not going to be despaired anymore. We're not going to even be angry anymore because we can transcend that energy. We just need to do it together. We
Yeah.
need to know how to do it together. And yes, we can all do it individually, and we can teach people how to do it individually, and that's beautiful. But one thing I've launched is what I call the Cosmic Wish Experiment, which is to hopefully get people to create what I call wish circles, where people are wishing together for the same thing.
Beautiful.
And so, and you know, one thing you mentioned as far as like, okay, how do you get that in your control, or how do you bring that more into like a practical application? And that is going back through the anthropology of, we had rituals.
Hmm.
And so if we can use a ritual, and whether that ritual is, you see 11:11 on the clock, right? I have somebody wanting to do a wish circle, and their ritual that they're going to unite for their circle is every time you see a mirror.
Oh. So they're not necessarily doing it at the same time, but they're hitting all these little
They're
pings
doing it at
and
least once a day,
right, right.
right? Because
Okay.
neuroplasticity requires the frequency,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And so we can get into that. But they have something where like, okay, I know that everybody in here, this, I mean, how many times a day do you see a mirror?
Right.
But some could be, and some could be like somebody's doing a wish circle for, I wish the world was a safe and better place for animals. And so every time they see an animal, they're going to be reminded to make their wish, or hear a bird, or see one on TV, or whatever that is. But sometimes it could be a time on the clock. So if this wish circle is all wishing at 11:11, just to pick, you know, whatever time, or 4:44 is one that I like,
Yeah.
then can you imagine the power? Like all of a sudden, you know, everybody is wishing at
It's a
the time
great
for that
idea.
wish.
Such a simple, great idea.
It's really, it is simple, you know,
Hmm.
and actually the program I created is simple, fun, and free. Like it's meant to be for fun. Fun is actually a science behind how
Hmm.
important it is to make it fun, and just give people like the framework using the sciences to build upon that wish and add those practical applications you're talking about.
That it's funny you mentioned that because you talked about people don't know what to do other than maybe protest. And I was one of those. After I'd ingested a certain amount of the Epstein file information, I'm like, I can't sit through this one. We cannot just sit on this one and absorb it and not do anything. And it kind of feels like that's what's going on depending on what I'm looking at. But I started, in my mind, it was a protest. But then it became a rally. It was more of, I don't want to focus. Yeah.
Protest and a rally,
Yes.
and
I
then the
want,
next step is a wish, right? Is
yes.
what.
So that's what it was. I even called it the Rally of Light, the signs. This, I did mention that there are these people who seem to be controlling all the institutions of society, and it was a kind of a negative sign. And I'm like, that's the only statement I'm going to say that might be considered negative. And underneath that, it said, we're not powerless against this. And then every other sign was talking about our own divinity, you know, that God's within us, remember your own divinity, and that the universe supports acts of courage, and we're divine sparks of the infinite source, or whatever. Just as like, and I had music going, and we were just trying to spread positivity because I'm like, we have got to come back to this. And also, I wanted to make the point that one of the biggest ploys or tricks that they've pulled is they've got us to not just fear each other, but to fear being ourselves. Nobody wants to stand out from the herd. And I'm like, I may be out there standing on the road by myself, and that's absolutely fine because that might show others that it's okay to look maybe like the fool or whatever. And it was a really positive thing. And I didn't expect it to be this, but it was really just a personal thing for me because I was in such a funk over it that snaps me out of it. I'm like, I even gave like a
That then you went from this
perfect.
energy up to this higher
Yeah.
energy.
Without knowing what I was doing,
You
but
knew what you were doing, you just didn't have the language.
yeah.
I mean,
So
you didn't have
that's,
the framework, but you were doing exactly that. And then all of a sudden, and that's what we're missing. We're missing that Martin Luther King speech, right? Well,
yeah.
and that's why, honestly, why I wanted to meet you and why I want to be on podcast is like, let's do this. Like,
Yeah.
let's do this. And even in the corporate world, starting to make sure, like, I'm going to screen companies that I'm like, if you think empathy is a weakness, then I'm not working with you, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not going to be, if it's greed
That's
over
great.
people, it's not going to be, they're not going to vibe with it anyway. They're going to think they're going to follow it, and then I'm not going to arm them with that power. So yeah, that's exactly and there's just really cool science that you can add to that increases that power and multiplies the impact and the power. And that's, so, when you were asking me earlier about myself, I felt like when I was writing this book, like my whole life came together to do that.
Mhm.
I don't know where it's going to go. Is it going to be another failure? No, I mean it's not a failure, of course, if it reaches
Yeah. You can't
whoever
fail.
whoever it reaches. It has the potential to really like huge, elevate and build this kind of community where we're not going to let that energy bring us down anymore. Now, I will say that I do kind of hold the belief like if it's really bothering you, yes, we need to elevate, and we need to know if it's bothering you for a reason because there's something you should be doing about it. And
Mhm.
that what you did was exactly that. You elevated it to a much, much higher level, a much more beautiful place. And they won't know how to deal with that energy. They don't know how to not control us like that. I mean, it's just beyond that. It's so transcending that. And we just
Yeah.
need leaders, more leaders. And I think that the message, because we are lacking those leaders right now, the message is we need to be them.
That was exactly it. Before I did this, and for whatever reason, I'm like, where are the churches? Isn't this what they've been waiting on? We're finding out that they're satanic cannibals. Where are the churches? This is your day. So I called my community. I'm like, I tried to call the pastor. I didn't get him. And so I called my sister's church and tried to get a hold of their pastor to say what, I guess, hey, are you doing anything? Because if you are, I'd like to join you. But I quickly went to, why am I looking for someone else to do? Why am I waiting on somebody else? Just go do your thing. There was probably 20 people involved through doing a live stream and actually being there. And I thought I was okay with it just being me. But yeah, we have to be the ones to do it. We're waiting on a savior, and it's us. Collectively, it's us. And it has to start with the little seeds and the little ripples.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm with you. That's
Yeah,
excellent.
that's really ultimately and for me, one of the things I love about this, and I think you will too, is that um, you can be really super religious and wishing, and you can resonate with wishing, and you can
Hmm.
be anti-religion, anti-faith, atheist, skeptic, and you still can't deny the science. Right? So it's like this is the unifier, the way to unite both spirituality and science, because there is that component that I called the cosmic collaboration, right? The element that is outside of you that has to collaborate with you to make your wish happen. And we could talk about the four responses to wishing and all those nuances. But there has to be that external thing. And guess what? There's some really cool science behind that. You can use quantum physics and some aspects like non-locality and some of the new research that's frontier research, maybe. There's some science that says, yes, there is consciousness outside of ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so, we know it spiritually, of course, of course we know that. But the science people are like, I
Yeah.
prove it to me, are starting to see that. And, even if they ignore that part, there's just cool science to say the things that you and I would call spiritual stuff is backed by science. Like the word
Yeah.
peaceful and being peaceful has cool science in it. Like that was to me, and even today, looking at the Martin Luther King speech and then seeing all the sciences he used, and he didn't know what he was doing. Like you didn't know you were using David Hawkins. It didn't matter. You could
Yeah.
doing it because it's so instinctive to what works, right?
Yeah. What have you found other things in terms of the sciences that there are there biological processes going on that they've been able to measure when they see people are in these states? I mean, it would probably be like meditative states, or people would have to say, hey, okay, I'm feeling peaceful, and they're measuring something, or
Yeah, there's so many different angles. Like, in fact, like in this children's book I wrote, and then that's just on the three P's. Like I've got other frameworks that add to the science, right? Because there's the whole motivation science and how does that all weave in? And there's this like really cool, I mean, like all of it's, and then the neuroscience and what's happening in the brain, right? So you're talking biologically, repeating the wish is does two things. It says that it says to your brain, it trains your brain to look for that solution. Because if you're repeating it and you repeat it every day, and all of a sudden every time you see a mirror, even if all you're doing is feeling peaceful, positive, and purposeful for that time you look in the mirror, you're elevating your own energy. Like this is really cool stuff. And when you wish for something specific, then your brain is going to look for solutions for that. If you're wishing for peace in Ukraine, all of a sudden you might get, people getting a bunch of kids to write letters to Putin saying, please withdraw.
Mhm.
I mean, you never know what's possible and you're going to look for solutions. So repeating the wish and what it does from a spiritual standpoint is let's whatever energy you call that's outside of yourself, it reminds them like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is, I'm serious about this. Help me. And when you do, it turns on what's called the reticular activating system, which you may know about, which is like your
No.
brain is looking, it triggers a part of your brain that looks for the answers. And you think I can say yellow car, and then all of a sudden you're going to see yellow cars everywhere, right? So there's so many really, and I'm clear, I'm not a scientist, right? I just got curious about science as I was writing a novel, and so I could look at the good news is I could kind of look at science from lots of different perspectives because I wasn't one rigid kind of science.
Right.
But yeah, so there's biology, there's anthropology, there's sociology when we're doing a get together, which is what, you were doing. There's lots of very interesting motivation science, which is kind of a combination of different sciences. So some of the sciences kind of overlap, and you got a lot of Venn
Yeah.
diagrams that are like, okay, these are the main categories, but then you start looking at how they're working together. So yeah, it's it's fascinating to see this is how the brain works. And like when you're sharing a story and you have this beautiful story, then you're firing mirror neurons in the people listening to your story and they're buying into your story. And like for the children's book, I have give examples of peaceful, a wish before, peaceful, and after. And when you add the science, this is like a little experiment where they add the science and then the wish changes. And the purposeful one is a little boy, and he's standing in front of a mirror with a towel around his neck, and he says, I wish to be a superhero. And he's looking at his reflection in the mirror. And then they add science to it, they add the purposeful science to it. And that's the mirror neurons is one of that aspect, and people are connecting on that level. And the mirror reflects, so he changes it to his wish to, I wish to be a superhero so I can help people. And then in the mirror is the reflection of all the people he's helping, as well as all the people who will help him help people. So that multiplier effect is really based in science. So making it purposeful increases your impact. And there's, like I said, there's that's one of the aspects of it is that the neurons within the other people start firing, wires that fire together, whatever the brain,
Yeah.
what that saying is now. I'm going to butcher it, but so yeah. So there's so many really really interesting aspects, and there's also the art and science of storytelling woven into that, which is to look at your wants versus your needs,
Mhm.
right? And that's really important. Like in a story, if you see a movie, generally the movie will start out, not all movies, but a lot of movies will start out with the character wanting something, and they find out that that's not really what they needed by the end of the
Mhm.
story. And the big part of the story is they needed something else, and I think that's what
Yeah.
I was telling you. Like I went through last week, I was like, oh, I wanted this, but I realized this is the better way for me to, what I need is this, you know.
Yeah. So then, how has that changed your wishing practice when you know now that you're going to get what you need, regardless of what you think you want? You know what I mean? Has that changed how you project when you're wishing, or?
It does, and it's interesting because I mean, like, I'm a work in progress. I'm an explorer. I'm going to keep learning, and I invite anybody that's listening or watching that's, into more science and they read the book and they see something that they could add or change or whatever. Like it, I want it to be kind of constantly growing and evolving, and I open up the discussion for more sciences. For me personally, I am much more attuned to every time I say the word wish, even in my mind. Like,
Mhm.
recognizing the power of that. I use the three P's in lots of different ways that I wouldn't have used before. Even when I'm not making a wish, like if I can't get to sleep, I'll just like, okay, can I get peaceful? Can I get positive? Can I get purposeful? And that calms my nervous system. The polyvagal system relaxes. It has that impact. And I talk about what I call the four responses, because wishes are answered by one of four ways: yes, no, wait, or something better.
And how
Okay.
do you discern then? I mean, a yes would be kind of obvious if you got your wish, but the others, like the waiting and
Yeah, but sometimes yes isn't always the best answer.
but you get it anyway.
Well, I mean, you've heard the be careful what you wish for,
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
right? And so you might wish for something like when you're talking about manifestation, and there's obviously a lot of really beautiful, powerful stuff there. And there's also kind of the fringe that took it in maybe not such a good direction.
Right.
And like, oh, I wish for Ferrari in my driveway. And then you're like, okay, the next day it's got a scratch. It's not so exciting anymore. Or your neighbor gets a fancier one. Like, is that what you needed? Like, did you really need validation and not a Ferrari?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
What is it that what was it behind that wish? So sometimes yes will teach you that lesson, like, okay, I got this thing that I thought was the most important thing in my life, and maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a lesson of that. No can just be more information to guide you to something else, right? Or something to help you get closer to that wish. And wait, sometimes it means you're not ready and you're being protected by the universe because you're not ready. Maybe the world isn't ready for whatever it is that you want. Excuse me. Or sometimes you're not ready. Like there are things you have to do to be ready for that wish to happen.
Right.
Like I went through that kind of experience recently where I was wishing for something to happen in my personal life. And then all of a sudden some work kind of stuff happened. And I was like, oh, well, if the personal thing had happened, I would have not taken this opportunity that could help me get this message out to a bigger part of the world. And I would have missed that opportunity because I was off in this direction. So sometimes, wait or no. And then the fourth one, something better. And sometimes we fail to see that there might be something better. We wish for one thing, but maybe there's something better.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be hindsight that tells you all of this, right? So you
Well,
look back
that's
on how
yes, and it when you know it, then it's not hindsight anymore.
true, right.
Right? Because you're like, okay, I'm going through this. Why am I not getting it? Or as I'm making this wish, am I really thinking it through? I have this, what I call a motivation matrix. And imagine four squares. I could probably show it to you in the book. It's just as easy. So four squares, two columns, and two rows, right?
Yes.
A box of, four boxes. Um, Top of one column is want. The next column is don't want. And then the first row is have, and the bottom row is don't have. So you've got a box of the things that you want that you have, and those are the things you nurture. Or my new word is savor. I'm just into the word savor. Like I'm
Yeah.
savoring the things that I want, that I have, that I want to appreciate, right? It's kind of better than gratitude in a way. Savor is like
Yeah.
you're in it.
It implies that you're enjoying it and you're with it.
You're
Yes, that
with
is a
it. You're
good
like,
word.
yeah, it's not like, oh, thank you. It's like, man, this is so good. And we all have things like that, even if it's like we just, eat a caramel or something, and whatever
Yes.
it is. Then the next column is don't want. So those are things that you have that you don't want. Okay.
Mhm.
That's in the top row is have. So those are things we look at eliminating. Like, okay, what do we remove from our life? Then the bottom box on the left is things you want that you don't have.
Mhm.
And that's usually what we're wishing for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we know we can usually list those pretty well. And then the last box is one that's kind of this mystery that a lot of people don't consider, which is the things you don't want and don't have,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And we have to be careful when we're wishing. We may be picking up things that we want and don't that we don't want and don't have that we didn't even think about. So if it's the Ferrari and then all of a sudden, oh wait a minute, I have to pay all this extra insurance, or I might have to worry about this or this or this happening that I didn't worry about before.
Mm.
Right. So it's when you get really, really clear on that. And then you go into the wants versus needs. And to use the storytelling, I thought like, imagine if you remember at the beginning of Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars person.
I've seen it, but I may not know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Well,
though.
at the beginning, Luke wanted to go on adventures with his friends. He was jealous that his friends were going to university and they were having these adventures. And he just want to go out but what he needed was to find his purpose.
Mhm.
Right? So that's where we have to start thinking, okay, we want this thing, but what's the need behind it? We say we want $1 million. Our brain can't compute that very well. If I need an education to pay for the education for my children, a lot easier for our brains to find
Yeah.
a solution.
And I found that very interesting that you said, because I understand, I don't remember the word for it, but that thing your brain goes through when, and you even mentioned a vehicle, a yellow car. I just bought a red van for work, and my wife's constantly seeing red vans. And the skeptic in me even applied it to say angel numbers. I'm like, yeah, I see 1111 now, but now that I'm aware of it, I'm going to see it all the time or whatever. But I choose not to look at it that way. But
But
that,
that's your brain, is your reticular
yeah,
activating system.
but
And
that you could.
it's how your brain works.
Yes, that you mentioned though that you would see solutions if you imagine solutions or you're wishing for solutions that you could see them. I'm like, that I've never thought of, and that is going to be something I'm going to put in my pocket and work with. So because I know that process does work, regardless of if it's angels are talking to me through numbers or if my brain just identifying it one way or another, my brain is seeing that. So we know that process works. Everybody experiences that. So we might as well, yeah, look for those solutions to the things that we want solutions for. And you're saying then that wishing for that thing trains your brain to then see the
Your
solutions
brain is a problem solver, right? In
and
fact,
a
I love
pattern
the quote
recognizer.
from yeah, and pattern recognizer. I love the quote from Mark Manson about happiness is solving problems.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and our we like that. We get into that. We will solve
Yeah.
that problem. And so, but it takes technique. It takes repetition. It takes clarity. It takes understanding. Are we aligned, mind, body, and spirit? Because if our body's not in alignment, we're going to we could very well sabotage what we want. So it's important to make it fun. I know we started here before we clicked on a big laugh that we had, and our bodies are like, "This is going to be fun. I'm going to have fun."
Yeah.
And that's important. Fun is there's a lot of science in fun.
Have you come across anything mentioning the body? Because one of the practical steps that I've applied to myself for reasons that might even be unclear to me as of now is I've taken on the practice more in a dedicated way, this fasting, intermittent fasting, to the point of 20 hours a day, almost like one meal a day thing. Because I feel like when I eat the way I used to eat, I literally felt gunked up. I felt like if I'm going to be a channel for some of this higher frequency energy, it's like I'm clogged and I couldn't do that. Are those types of things brought up in your books or the things that you've learned in terms of getting your physiology ready to maybe better receive and what's the word, transmit this type of thing?
I would say only from a certain angle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mention anything about fasting or anything like that. It because you're only everybody's going to know what works for them, right?
Right.
And what they connect with. But what is important is making sure your body is in alignment with whatever the vision is. And so often we force our body to do things and our body will rebel. And so we can like have these tussles with it. The best example I like to use is, you imagine you see your neighbor walking their dog and the dog runs off.
Mm-hmm.
And what usually happens is they yell at the dog or chase the dog, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
you go, hey, it's fun over here, the dog's going to go, yay, I'll go over here, right?
So that's what you mean by getting your body in alignment?
So your body is like the dog. The body, you say it's fun over here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
with you. I hear you. Are we together on this? Then your body is going to go along with it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also connecting and asking and knowing what your body wants. Are you familiar at all with the Huna religion?
No.
It's a Polynesian religion. You've heard the Big Kahuna. Well, that's the
Yeah.
lead of the Huna tribe. So now you kind of
Okay.
know that that's
Yeah.
the priest or whatever of the Huna. But one of the things that they recommend is that, I mean, when I started doing this totally changed my life, is naming your body. So you
Okay.
have a specific name, and he, or if you're listening, she, whoever, will tell you their name. You can't tell them. They have to tell you.
Can you
And
tell
when
us?
that happens, then you start having communication. So if you're saying with your body, are we on this together? Are you with me on this? Because your spirit might be saying, yeah, this is the best way to channel. But your body, when I realized the body was the subconscious, it totally changed my whole life. And when your body, but when you start talking to your body, it's like, what do we want now? And savoring, I had a friend of mine when I was first getting into this, and it's probably still true. She's like, she never had seen anybody just so consciously eat every bite. And so often we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't savor, right? To go back to my word, that's my big word of the month, word of the month club. So making sure our body's in alignment, and our body should be in alignment with our wish. Is this where our body really wants to go? So if we're aligned mind, body, and spirit, and of course, if it's purposeful, it's going to be a more aligned on the spirit level. But it's when we try to force our body to do things that it rebels, and
Yeah.
sometimes pretty strongly
With sickness.
with sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sabotage of all kinds of. I mean, the subconscious can sabotage us lots of really tricky ways. I had a friend of mine who was first starting to understand her body, and then she kind of ignored it. She got the name and everything, and then she ignored the body. And then she was having all these weird things like, I know I set the alarm and the alarm didn't go off. And I know I locked the front door, but the next morning it's not only unlocked, the door's open. So it's not just you get sick, but there could be like really weird, tricky things that your subconscious can do because it's aware of everything.
Right.
Right? It catalogs everything. Our mind, I can't remember the percent, but it's like a teeny tiny percent of what our subconscious is aware of.
Yeah. So did you just say that when you realized the body was the subconscious or the subconscious was the body? What did you mean by that?
I'm exactly that. Like when if we can imagine we have a soul that existed before we were born, and that soul chooses a body to become us, which is like you were saying, you were aware of that kind of at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Then those are the three selves. That's the conscious, subconscious, superconscious, the mind body, or the body mind spirit. And that was a big revelation for me. It's like, so when we say the subconscious, it's your body, and your body lives on it. It has the DNA and the history and the genetic memories and everything else on that level. And so when we're choosing a body, like you said, you chose your parents, you chose your body, you chose all the things that went along with that,
Yeah.
right?
As you're kind of,
Your
sorry, go
soul
ahead.
did. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Just that I'm envisioning it as when you're choosing a body, you're kind of choosing a filter. You're choosing the way that your subconscious works. If it's based on the type of genetics you have, then you would have a different tool in a sense. Like your subconscious is different than my subconscious, or is it
Just imagine that if your soul had chosen my body, how different it would be, right?
interesting? I've never
Or
heard
vice
that.
versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll bake your noodle, as a friend of mine
I'll
used to
be
say.
contemplating that.
Like in the movie The Matrix, she's like, what's really going to bake your noodle when you
Yeah.
leave here? That might bake your noodle. And so when you realize that's your subconscious, then all of a sudden, and you get to know him or her, and you can have communication because you have to understand they live on the level of the earth, whereas our spirit is up here, connecting on that
Hmm.
spiritual level, but that body is living on the physical level. And that's where kind of survival of the fittest and some of those kinds of aspects come in. And the problem that we're having, back to the, energy of what's going on right now, is that cut themselves off from the higher, or some of these people have cut themselves off from the higher selves. And therefore they're living only on that survival of the fittest. And I call it social Darwinism. Is like when somebody's feeling weak, they have to look for somebody to subjugate. And that's the energy they're tapping into, right? That's the anger and hatred they're trying to force on everyone else so that they can control because they're feeling weak.
Yeah.
And so
It's
the body lives in that world, right? The body is operating on this earth level energy. But when we connect all three, then all three can be working in alignment.
and so has your body told you its name?
Yes.
Can you tell us its name?
I think my advice is to be protective. I would trust
Okay.
you
I
privately,
respect that.
but it's a really kind of very special thing. I will
Well,
say it's as opposite of Brownell as you can get. Like it was nothing that I would have ever guessed. But my friend who was into it, he actually picked up on it, and we both came up with it at the same time. Like he knew it and I knew it.
mhm.
His body basically told him what my body's name was, and it was what I had too. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
I'm
it's
always
not really a past life, like that would be your soul, right?
right. I'm always interested to hear how what the experience was of a person when they say that they have an experience like that, where something spoke to them that is not something that we would get taught happens or that something speaks to you. Like you say, you're talking to guides or angels or things like that. When your body told you, how did it come to you? Just a knowing that felt like a thought or
Well, I'm going to answer that with two ways because with how I perceived it then and how I perceive it now.
Mhm.
Okay. And why that's different. Is how I perceived it then. It was like, I think it was like maybe in the shower or I woke up and, and it's like right when my brain wasn't necessarily active and I was more in, like, oh, that's like you've had I mean, we've all know that kind of shower eureka moment where
Mhm.
this thing we got, like we've been thinking about this thing and all of a sudden now we put it down and we go for a walk and all of a sudden that answer comes to us. And now I know the science of that. And it's
Okay.
called the default mode network.
Okay.
Very cool science. You will love this because basically what that science is, and just it's so, I mean, I feel like I'm like the science geek, but it's when we're not thinking that there's a part of our brain that kicks in that that starts operating and and there's like so there's a scientific explanation for why those are the times when we're open to information that we weren't. I know Aaron Sorkin talks about like when he's writing a script and he gets like sometimes he'll take 7 showers a day,
Yeah.
and what he's doing is activating the fault mode network.
Mhm.
I just don't. I'm like, part of me would like, can I call him? Do you know what the science is? Because there's science behind the explanation of why that works. And creative people a lot of times know that, or any of us
Yeah.
trying to solve a problem. Like you're talking about the music, and sometimes like all of a sudden the music will come to you, and it's in a dream, or when you're in that hypnagogic state
Yes.
as you're falling asleep. I love the whole concept of hypnagogia. That's another thing I've gotten into lately. But yeah, that's how it works. It's like there's part of your brain, the rest shuts off, and then this part opens, and your brain is still constantly working. And so, like, I'm kind of addicted to going to the gym, and so I do 90 minutes on the elliptical every day, and my DM is like
Yeah.
the answers to all the stuff I've been working on all morning.
Yeah. I think I think I've had that experience. I mean, I know that I have where you know the difference between a thought that you're trying to figure someone out and you're actively thinking and something just like a sudden insight or something.
That's right. And it's a part of your brain. One part shuts off and the other part turns on, and that's
Yeah.
why it works. But
And
it's you
that
have
do
to
you,
shut off that one part.
yeah. So because there are certain buzzwords that used to kind of trigger me because I'm like, do you guys even really, you're just saying words like download. Like, what's the difference between a download and a thought? Well, that type of thing to me, I'm like, that my understanding of a download would be like that. When you're not trying to come up with a concept or a thought or a word and it just appears in your mind, a sudden solution or a sudden idea. So is it kind
Well,
of like a
and that, and there's also, and I've started doing some research on this, so I'm not going to be very adept at explaining it. But I know, I don't know if you know the Bob Dylan quote where he said, the song was there before I came along. I just got the pencil and wrote it down.
yes, yes.
So there is kind of this energy. Liz Gilbert calls them like idea orbs or thought orbs or whatever, that are like has its own entity almost. That's an idea that certain people tap into. Or like I like to think of myself as like this radio that's very specialized that I can tap in and find information,
Mhm.
but it's out there for everybody. I just kind of spend the time tuning in that radio to get to that, or the array of in New Mexico, right, where all the big telescopes are trying to go find it.
Yeah,
They have to be tuned exactly to that place in the universe. So yeah, that's a little different actually. And there's again, I'm going to butcher the science, but there is kind of it starts getting into some things about non-locality and quantum physics. So it's actually beyond the neuroscience of our brain, but into something that's outside of ourselves. So there's that download thing can be I'm tapping into this other energy, whatever you want to define it, or it could mean that it is in your brain is looking for the answers and it's there, or maybe they're the same thing or they're working together, you know.
yeah.
I don't know. I can ask more questions than I can answer, I'm afraid.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Um, This made me think of a personal experience that I've never shared, definitely on the podcast, but that type of experience. For a while, I thought, because I'm an explorer too. I was looking for my path, so to speak, and this wasn't very long ago. But I was listening to a lot of channels on different podcasts. You know, I listened to Daryl Anka and Bashar for years, and Abraham Hicks. And are you familiar with these guys? Their material's very similar to this. So I thought maybe I'll try to channel. People talk about talking to their guides and their higher selves or whatever. If in Daryl Anka's case, it would be an extra dimensional being, you know, that is actually him. But anyway, one of the things in the book was suggested to me was to ask your guide's name, ask the name of the guide. And I'd sit in meditation, and I'd done it multiple times. And one of the times, out of nowhere, when I'd gotten quiet and I wasn't trying to think of an answer, the word, and it's so corny, clarion came into my mind. And I'm like, that's cheesy. Am I just thinking of makeup products like L'Oreal and Clairol and whatever?
It
But
doesn't mean like, I mean, a speaker. I mean, it doesn't
I don't
clarion.
even know what it means. But I have heard the phrase clarion call.
Right. I was going to say, I think there's some
Well, now you
etymology,
might be
cool
onto
etymology
something
to
there.
that. Yeah.
But here's what really got me, because I'm very skeptical to a fault. I probably should chill out on the skepticism. I think it's holding me back. But in a podcast, in the next day or two, these people were talking about past lives. And this one lady was actually talking about a tangential life, like a parallel life. But it was in the future, but it was happening now, type of thing. So she said, and it was 300 years in the future, and she was a woman also, and her name was Clarion. And I thought, I don't even know what that word is. I had it pop into my head, and now I heard it on a podcast, but I'm like, okay, but what does that mean? Is that a confirmation that that's the guide's name? Or did my brain do the thing where I'm focused on this word Clarion and I caught it again? Do you know what I mean?
Well, in fact, I brought this up in my book, and it's one of those kind of tangent things, but I just couldn't resist putting it in there. And I call it the blue balloon effect. And imagine, I'm answering your question, by the way. I'm not changing the subject. But you're like, okay, what does that have to do with Clarion?
No, I'm with you.
Is imagine you're driving home and you envision a blue balloon in your driveway. Okay. And then you drive home and you pull in the driveway and there's a blue balloon, like deflated, whatever, or maybe on a fence or something. But you see a blue balloon. The question is, did you manifest that blue balloon? Like you thought it and then you manifested it and you made that blue balloon appear. Or did you get into some sort of and I forget the language and the concept of quantum physics. It's kind of precognition, but it's a word similar to that, but it's a different word they use in physics. Were you given a vision of the future
Mhm.
that balloon was there, right? Or did your subconscious see the balloon and it was there somehow, but your brain shut it out and then it was always there? And then there's another possible answer. I mean, there's so many different answers to that question. So when you're saying like you got this message and she's talking about 300 years in the future, I have actually a Facebook group called Life is a Trip that it's about a lot of people to have reincarnation stories, and it's really fun.
Mhm.
Spiritual stories and reincarnation stories. And even I always think, like even if I had 10 people, 20 people say they were all Marilyn Monroe, they're saying that for a reason. And I'm not going to argue with whether they are or not. It's not even important because whatever it is, there's a lesson in there, and there's probably different lessons for all 20 people.
Yeah.
And so the 100 years or 300 years in the future and that name, I'm not going to judge whether that's true or not true. That's what this person needs to know, to hear, to learn. That's what they're guided. There's message in that for her,
Yeah.
right? And for you, my just the most obvious thing is that this clarion guide wants your attention and wants to bring your attention to it and say, there's a blue balloon, look for it. I mean, like
Yeah.
there's, this, I'm trying to show you that there's blue
Yeah.
balloons in the world. I'm trying to show you I'm here. I'm trying to get your attention because I, want to talk to you.
Yeah.
That's, so maybe that's why you connected with that person, or why the name came up or the story came up or whatever. And I'm just totally projecting, so I could be wrong, but that would
No,
be
I'm all over the place with it too. And actually, it was just the other day. I don't know if it's the name of a hotel chain or not, but it's a big road sign. It said Clarion. I'm like, oh
Yeah, I think
yeah,
there is.
Clarion. I haven't thought of Clarion in such a long time. I should go back and revisit that, but I never did. Life's so busy at the
Yeah.
moment, but.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think if that is the message, I mean, when you're saying how do you connect with guides, I mean, for me, I was writing a story and that's how they kind of started talking to me. And then sometimes I can tune in, sometimes I can't, which probably is a nudge for me while as I'm saying this to go, yeah, you should be writing about them. And then they'll tell you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm busy writing something else.
What was that? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
What was that like when you first decided or realized you had guides talking to you?
It was a trip. It really was. It was very interesting because I started, I mean, I could feel their presence so much in my life during that time as I was writing it, but also like there would be days and I make a decision and it's like I could tell they were so in alignment with that decision, they would make me feel so good. Like I could feel
Hmm.
this external boost of something that's guiding me, saying, giving me the affirmation. And then I might go through days and I'm blank and they're like, okay, either I'm just in a chill mode or I'm not doing what they want me to do
Yeah.
and I need to get back in alignment. So the weirdest part was just, okay, how do I learn to surrender to their will?
Hmm.
And that takes a lot of trust and that's hard.
So I was going to ask you then, have you learned to surrender to their will?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Hmm.
In a lot of ways. I mean, I still wish because that's the way
Yeah.
to communicate, desire.
Yeah.
But I also know, like I said earlier, that there's this wish I had, and I realized then this other kind of more important thing came up, and if that other wish had happened, it could have blocked that wish. So I'm saying, wow, maybe I'm trusting the fact that this is. Oh, there's a dog, so you can do my dog example. Like, fine over here. No, anyway, to like, okay, then I can trust, like, okay, the timing is not there for this because this is more important and this has to happen, and the other can wait.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I had actually she's a new friend of mine. She was listening to the show and she reached out to me and wanted to have a conversation, so we did. But one of the things she was asking about was what's she supposed to do? What direction is she supposed to take her life in? Because she's having these experiences, that synchronistic experiences, that she feels like she's being led towards a certain thing to be doing, and it felt like that to me. But in the end, all I could say was, you're going to have to discern this on your own and trust it. But I always want to ask when people say that they're in communication with guides or higher energies of any kind, what is their experience like? So then those listeners could hear that and be like, yes, that's how it is for me too. I actually said, I'm like, you need to go with the thing that lights you up. Does it excite you and energize you? And that's definitely go with that. And then the path kind of opens, because I know that I said I've found a path. Well, of course I've found a path, but like I said, it's going to change, and you're always open to that. But that helps me too because I'm finally starting to, as simple as that sounds, of course, go with what excites you. That's going to be your compass. What lights you up and excites you. That's the thing to at least look into and take a step towards, and then let it unfold as it goes.
I'm gonna actually laugh because while you're saying that, I felt like I got a message.
Okay,
And that the message that was given to me for you, again, I'm not a channel, but this
I'll
is
take it.
when I get a message, I have to say it and I can't filter it. And that is your path is going to stay the same, but it's going to get much bigger in scope. So that you see like on an earth level, it's going to be it's going to be much bigger. So it's going to expand, but not change direction for you.
Yeah.
Is the message I just got. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know. I'm just telling you what a message I got. But that's the message for you. I don't know if that's going to feels good or not, but
No, thank you. It does. And
it
it
feels like
feels,
you are on the right path. Is the message for you? Just be ready for it to get bigger and more powerful.
I am. But I kind of feel like be careful what you wish for. Maybe I shouldn't say I am. I feel that I am, but they know what I can handle. So I trust that.
This is just that nod to you. Say, be ready, and if you're not ready, the timing will happen, right?
Hmm.
You might get a wait, but it wouldn't hurt to just meditate on what would that mean if it was that much bigger and more expansive.
Yeah,
That's the message I got for you.
I will. Thank you for that because I'm always looking for things to focus on. You brought up the collective wishing and the power of that. And there's biblical references to that too. Those who two or more gathered in my name type of thing.
Yeah.
So in the mornings, my wife and I have been together. We've been wishing for what we want. And I said, let's take it all the way. Because like you said, you could wish for the Ferrari, but what is it that feeling you think the Ferrari is going to give you?
That's
So,
right.
because we're wishing for an experience on Earth, but I'm like, let's just go for and wish for and envision the new Earth, the most blissful, connected experience that we can. Because at first it was to wish for an experience in Hawaii. She's an ocean lover, and I love it too. Any kind of travel at all. But I'm like, let's just go straight to the new Earth and what that might feel like, and then for all we know, we'd be able to travel at the speed of thought in this new Earth if we just don't limit it. Because I was a big fan of Robert Monroe's books. Are you familiar with Robert Monroe? I don't remember which book it was, but in his travels, he came across a version of humanity that was able to do things like leave their body at will and leave their physical body lying under a tree in what he called a reball, a resonant energy ball that not even a virus could get into. And they could enter their consciousness into anything they wanted. A bird, a cloud. And he did these things, a big cat like a jaguar or something. And he goes through a very well articulated experience of what it was like to be a cloud and draw the heat energy up from the earth and feel himself swell and then dump rain, and what it was like to be in a bird and be in a cat and how stable he felt on all fours. But that was like, he's like, this is an experience where humans have finally made it to, I guess, their highest potential. And he's like, this group he was with was telling him they were about to leave, meaning they didn't have to go through the death process that feels like an uncontrollable, like they didn't have any say in it. They had say, they were done with physicality and they were moving off. And I'm like, that's my, at least for now, my highest aspiration is to get to that reality, whether it happens in this life or I get to, say, reincarnate in another version of physical existence where that's possible. I'm like, that to me sounds like an ultimate heaven where you have the spiritual and the physical and the best of everything. So that's what we are sitting around doing this collective wishing for.
That's beautiful. I did an LBL, somebody going through Michael Newton's training, if you're familiar with Michael
I'm
Newton.
familiar with Michael Newton. I loved
Yeah.
the book he
And
had with, yeah,
the life,
Life
I
Between
think
Lives.
life
Yes.
between not, no, I'm sorry. He wrote Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls, but it was all about life between lives, right? That
Yes.
was
Okay.
the message. And so I had somebody take me through that maybe 6 weeks ago or something. And in his books, he talks about the fact that only certain people at certain levels of soul level are actually in the creating mode, like creating flowers or plants or fish or whatever. What I visited when I went through this LBL was like a playground where we can all go and create.
Mhm.
So we can go like this, like a vacation place, we can go and play, and we can play with creating new things.
Yeah.
And when you're talking, I'm thinking you're talking, and you mentioned it kind of is another existence and maybe another planet or another
Yeah.
dimension where all of that's possible. And so the question is that, are you wishing for to be in that other world, or are you wishing for this world to be that world?
I don't even know, or I don't know if I even care. It's just I want the experience is how I'm
Yeah.
envisioning it. Because I've listened to Dolores Cannon for years, and she was just the first person that introduced to me the idea of this split where you have the people who exist at a certain frequency are going to go one way and
Right.
the
Like
other,
James
and
Redfield too. He talked about in Celestial
yeah.
Prophecy, right? That was his.
So I don't know. It still doesn't make sense to me. Is there going to be a physical or at least an energetic split where we won't see certain people anymore? Or is it, I'm not clear on it, but I do choose to just believe that there is the possibility of this experience of essentially heaven on earth. The new earth to me is all of the beauty of physicality and everything that we get to savor with physicality and all of those other higher aspects of ourselves that we've either forgotten or we've been lulled into this soma and this hypnosis that we don't exist that way from those who are controlling the course of history, as I put earlier. Either way, I was like, if I want to wish for something, I want to go in my mind to all the way. But I'm like, I was going to ask you this: how important is it to get specific on things like this? I know in manifestation, they say drum up the feeling of what it must be like to be there, the smells, the sounds, the
Right, the
textures of,
senses that definitely
yeah.
activates a lot. So there is that ownership. The one thing that's interesting from a science standpoint is, and it's really tricky, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but there's you do need to see yourself in your wish, right? You need to be able to see, because that's important for you to get to the believing, right? If you can see yourself, see that happening. and embody that. And then the wish is like, then you release it, right? Because if you, Andrew Huberman, I don't know, do you ever listen to his podcast? Um,
What was that last name?
Andrew Huberman.
No, but I will remember that.
He's a neuroscientist and he teaches at Stanford and he does a lot of science. Into the science lecture stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I also listen to like the Sleepy Science channel when I'm going to sleep, so I can just like completely zone into science. But there is a place where you have to be careful that you don't so much see yourself happening that you don't need to make it happen. There's a really interesting thing about the brain
Mhm.
that you have to you have to know when to let it go and let it manifest, as opposed to like, oh, I see it now, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to go for broke and buy that thing that I can't afford because I see myself already having this house that I can't afford and then my mortgage collapse. But there's also the aspect of and that's when manifestation can go awry, right? And but there's also the aspect of, if you already see it, you already think you did it, then my brain doesn't try to solve it. It doesn't
Mhm.
try to make it happen. So again, I probably butchered the science, but there is that interesting nuance. And I think with your wish that you're doing with your wife, as long if what you're wishing for is this elevated energy, which is
Mhm.
ultimately what you're wishing for, right? Is this
Yes.
elevated energy. That is something that your brain can solve. It may not be able to create all that new earth thing that you're talking about, but elevating the energy every
Yeah.
day, step by step by step, whether you do a wish circle or not, which would be lovely, or like you already did with your rally, um, that's that's the incredible thing, right?
Yeah.
Is just let's go get off this energy, let's get up here
Right.
and let's hang here. This is where we want to hang, like we have today while we talk.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because you said your brain would see solutions. And not that fasting is the solution, but I know that to me, at least for now, that's a way that my energy raises.
That's
Because
what that's
I
right
just have
for.
yeah, my
As long
food
as your
and
body
me.
is in alignment, right? If
Yes,
your body is like,
exactly.
and sometimes with the body, here's a trick is get to know his name is what first.
Oh, yes, yes. I'm writing that down now.
And the second thing is to make sure that they're in alignment and make it fun. And so if it's okay, we're not going to eat for this many hours, then what can you do that's fun for him? Because or what kind of reward can you do for him? Like, I'm doing this kind of for my spiritual aspect. I'm also doing it for a cleansing aspect for the body. I want to make sure the body's in alignment and then ask the body, okay, like for example, let's say I've got a big project. I've got to get this thing done. And I really, and I'm like, oh, I'm on Facebook. No, I'm over here. No, I'm doing this. Like you're all over. But if you say to your body, hey, if we get this done by noon, we get to have the noon off, and we're going to go have fun. Your body will totally hunker down and do it. Like
Yeah.
totally be with you. So that would be what I would do with the body. Is like, okay, if I'm taking this pleasure away from you, which is food, what can you offer? Either making when you do eat, you're jamming,
Yeah.
and or what else? What can you do in the in between time so that your body can still feel like you love it, nurture it, care about it, you're with it. That would be the thing I would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I say all the time, this podcast is as much about my spiritual journey as any of the guests. I get so much great information out of it. But I
That's
feel like
because
I
the
could talk
questions
to you
you
for,
ask.
huh?
I said that's because the questions you ask, right? It
Oh,
goes
yeah,
down.
yeah, they're my questions. If there was one message of hope that you have felt and that you could give to others, what would that be?
I think once we are aware of what is happening on keeping us in that lower level energy, and we can rise up to the higher level energies and we won't be bothered by it. And that doesn't mean being in denial about what's happening. It means we can be so at such a high level that we can actually make action toward that positive, beautiful world that you're talking about.
Well, I love that. That's the exact message that I was trying to convey myself in podcasts where I was just monologuing. So thank you for reinforcing that. And I think that because people, they don't think that there's anything they can do, but nobody considers that it could be true that when you take care, it starts here. When you take care of your own frequency and vibration, kind of like if you're on a plane and it's crashing, you've got to take care of yourself first before you take care of the baby. That's where we start. That's at least where we start. It's not the final solution, but we have to start there. So, Brownell, thank you for that. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, it's I'm the only Brownell Landrum in the world, so that's kind of easy to
Yeah.
find me. I'm on all the socials. I got a YouTube channel that I'm going to be start growing and building, and you can find my books on Amazon and Apple Books and some of those other
Yeah.
places. And I love hearing from fans, and then the Cosmic Wish Experiment. If they want to do a wish circle, that's where they should go to check
I
that
was
out.
going to ask you about that too. Is there anything in general that you could say, okay, we've already established a cosmic wish circle where at say 11:11 you focus
Well,
or make
the
a wish
key is
then?
that you would join a group and that you would have your common ritual for your group, and then you would do it over 8 weeks. So it's kind of hard to join a group that's in progress.
Okay.
And so we've got some that are kind of in, I mean, I just published the book a few months ago, and I just launched the experiment like less than 2 months ago. So it's all brand new. And so it's all kind of just in the process of forming, but it's ready for people to
Uh,
join. And it's just we're getting that. So it's easier now. We will have public ones that people can join that haven't started yet. So people can maybe sign up and go, okay, I want to be part of this one or that one, or they can start their own.
yeah. And to join, you said they would go where to do that?
CosmicWishExperiment.com.
Cosmic Way. Okay, I'll put all that in the notes. And I
Yeah,
know when you go to one of your websites, there's the list of your books and everything that's going on, and
that's
they can
right.
check
That's
that out
my
too.
BrownellLandrum.com. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, Brownell, thank you so much for being here. It was great to
my
meet you.
pleasure. I had fun.
All right. Well, you have a great
Thanks.
evening.
Thanks, Jake. Bye.
Bye.
We were doing just fine in the life that we were living. Happiness flowed in peaceful abundance. Fruit grew fat on the vine, and the life that it was given was the same that filled the chambers of my heart. And we spoke most of the time of the workings of the spirit, how to see, how to hear some voice. And there in the breeze I heard, you can never be alone. There is nothing you can do that would mean you fail. Remember, this world is not your home. This truth leaks slowly from a smile behind the veil. Flowers bloom outside my door in geometric perfection, soft as lace upon my baby daughter's cheek. I couldn't take it anymore and sent my hectic collection of empty thoughts away with the wind. It shook me to the core. A spiritual connection came to me and it felt like a whisper. And there in the breeze I heard, you can never be alone. There is nothing you can do that would mean you fail. Remember, this world is not your home. This truth leads slowly from a smile behind the veil. But what about fear?